This is Bobby Kraft coming to you live on SNNLive. I'm here at the Toronto Resource Investment Conference 2013. To my right is Benj Gallander from Contra the Herd. Benj, welcome to SNNLive.
Hey, it's a pleasure to be here.
So, it's been a few months. It's those summer months in the mining industry. It's always when everybody's out and working and drilling and doing their drill programs. So, it's nice to be back and seeing everybody here. It's a very busy conference. So I'd like to know from your perspective, what's going on?
Well, it's a fascinating time in the mining industry. For a lot of the junior miners here, it's very difficult for them to raise money at this point in time. So a lot of them here are trying to get the word out, trying to get interest. They want to look at that mine that they've got in mind, or the mines they have in mind, or some have them out there already. They're looking to raise more funds, or they're just trying to get the word out. But I think for miners right now, especially juniors, it's very difficult. It was announced Verizon raised $49 billion for a bond offering, which is the biggest ever. The second biggest was Apple with $17 billion. So there's a tremendous amount of money out there. The question is, how much can the miners get into their sector?
One common theme I've been hearing at the show is a move towards domestic mines, in North America, Canada, and the States. Can you comment on that?
Oh, absolutely. At Contra the Herd, we look to invest and diversify. So we invest in Canada, invest in the States. We've got one company in France, Orange. We've got a company in China. But when we look to invest in our companies, we're always wary of countries where there's a lot of corruption, a lot of graft, where the government might step in and change the regulations at any moment in time. I was speaking in South Africa at a conference, a lot of mining companies there last May, and you really have to be careful where you invest. If you decide to invest in Canada or the States as a mining company, you've got far more certainty that the governments will treat you fairly. In other countries, a lot more danger.
So you're talking about the third world countries. When was this turn? Is it just been because of the metals have been hit rather harshly over the last couple months, or how did that come about?
Well, I think part of it is because metals have been hurt. If you go back even a couple of years with gold at record prices, companies found it easier to raise money. They had more money in their kitties. They could go further afield because they could afford it. At this point in time, when the kitties have become more bare, they're thinking, how am I going to do it? And it won't cost as much. It's far cheaper, of course, to set up something here in Canada or in the States than to go to a third world country or Russia. So again, you've got both the cost element, and you also have the element of dealing with certainty, as I mentioned before.
So from a contrarian point of view, would you now be looking at companies that are in third world countries with a deposit?
Yes, certainly happy to look at those, but I've learned over time, investing for the past 35 years or so, if you do invest in places where the rules are very sketchy, or if you invest in companies where the owners are sketchy, they're going to often take more off the table. And I used to think, when I was a little more naive, that would mean there could still be a lot left for me. Now I generally think I only want to work with certain people and certain companies where I really believe in what they're doing and I feel they're honest.
So you're a speaker at this conference, which happens to be very busy. What are you speaking about today?
Well, I'm going to talk about mining for profits in a contrarian vein. So I'm going to talk about the methodology that we used. We have amongst the highest long and short-term returns in North America, and also talk about specifically what's going on in the mining sphere. Again, we look at sectors that are out of favor. This is one that's out of favor. That immediately indicates there's more possibilities for excellent returns. But again, you still have to choose the right companies, right balance sheets, right management. It's not just to say it's out of favor, therefore I'll buy.
Interesting. So what other industries have you seen, in your opinion, that are also out of favor that you guys are now following?
In Europe, the telecoms are a big one. So we bought France Telecom, which is now Orange. Since 2009, I was buying a lot of U.S. financials. I bought 4 companies, specifically in that area, banks and General Electric, which I look at as a financial company. Those companies have moved up tremendously since we bought them. But financials, there's still some there, but telecoms is a big one. To be sure, they haven't gone up in value for the most part at this point in time. But again, you have to be very wary. And with those companies, there's often a lot of debt, so that does increase the risk.
So going back to metals, what do you foresee for the rest of 2013 going into 2014?
It's a great question, and I'm just not a good short-term prognosticator. For the most part, I don't do that. If a sector is way out of favor, even more so than, say, mining, I will say that it is way out of favor, and at some point it will turn. But to put on a timeline of, say, 4 months or so, I just don't know. Actually, if you look at analyst predictions, and they talk about a company's price in 1 year's time, only about 25% of them are correct. What I tend to do is look at a company, say, I think it can hit this price at some point in the future. I always know that it's been there in the past, because otherwise I wouldn't be buying it. But any short-term predictions to me are more and more difficult. The longer out you look, the better chance you have of being correct. So I just stick longer term with what may change.
And where can people find out more information about your insights?
www.contratheherd.com, CONTRATHEHEARD.com, and they can feel free to email us or phone us. We're happy to answer questions.
Perfect. This has been Bobby Kraft, and I'm live on SNN Live at the Toronto Resource Investment Conference 2013. With me again has been Benj Gallander of Contra the Herd. Benj, thank you so much for coming on to SNN Live.
Pleasure. Thanks for asking me to be here.